is the most dependable fine liner in the world this very beige, simple looking technical fine liner pen? Stay tuned to find out.
Hello and welcome to Stationery Test Drive. Every week we take tools and implements and papers and other stationery on interesting test drives. I'm Vishal.
I'm Samir.
This is Minjal.
And as Samir said in our intro, today we're looking at the Pigma Micron pens from Sakura in Japan. They are fine liners and based on technical pens, I guess. And really we love fine liners on this show. We've covered this thing's sort of chief rival, which is the uni pin fine liner, and we love those. But this is the first time I was using microns. But I've seen microns more often than uni pins. At least maybe in America they're quite popular.
I think overall amongst artists around the world, to a large extent, the microns are kind of the default fine liner.
Right. It's team black versus team mildly beige. But yeah, they're fine liners. What more can we say? They're kind of markers that have been engineered to have precise points.
Mm-hmm.
You get them in a variety of colors, this one, but we have got these as a set of blacks. And there's like 7 or 8 of them, so we kept a few of them here. And yeah, archival ink means that it's not going to be too it won't be light fast, or is it light fugitive? I never know which
It is
way.
light fast.
Okay, so it is light fast, it's not light fugitive. That's the but yes, these are great little markers. We have a 005. Now I used to think that a 005 used to be meant that it was like a metric number, like a 0.05 mm, but no, actually here if in small text it says 0.20 mm line, and so it's a gauge, not a mathematical kind of
It's
measure.
not a measurement of the width of the nib, it's a system of measurement that they have come up with for nib sizes.
So now I'm actually wondering if the original technical pens, which were sort of a bit more, in some ways primitive, but also a bit more advanced and technical. I think those ones, like this one is the 0.5, it says 0.45 mm line. So this is closer to, let's say, a 0.5. And this one, which is the PN, which is...
It's like a sign pen?
Yeah,
I guess so, yeah. It's a very different...
I mean, this is technically not really a fine liner, but it's part of the set that we got.
It's almost a fude, which we've covered before, which is like a more flexible. This is like a sign pen. Yeah, this is closer to a sign pen. And this one doesn't have a number on it. But yeah, I was actually, someone was tweeting about A paper sizes, A4, A3, A2, and how they're based on both the metric system in terms of the A0 is like as close to 1 meter square as possible in area, but also the dimensions of it are on the square root of 2. So you always kind of like the A4 is half the size in width of the A3. So you can put 2 A4s and get an A3, and then so on up, but also so on down. And the thing that person was saying, which I hope is true of these as well, is that the technical pens have numbers that also go up in that doubling.
In that same proportion.
So if you did, let's say, a 0.5 or a 0.45 on a A4 paper, if you did the same drawing in a 0.3 or whatever on an A2, I didn't quite figure this out, like the one size up, you would get the same proportional look. Yeah, so if you could like blow things up or blow things down.
Okay, that makes sense. Especially in the old days when you would draw the final artwork on a piece of paper and then you would photograph it to get things into print. So
yeah, and many times you would be expanding it or magnifying it or shrinking it based on a certain thing. You'd have to get those measurements right, and you wouldn't always have. So yeah, those are technical pens, but these are in some ways modern all-purpose pens. Even the packaging of this thing shows drawings. It doesn't show engineering drawings. But it's a fine line, and it's also a fine dot. And to tell us more about the use of fine dots to make things, Minjal, please show us your test drive, because that is what we do every week here. We test drive these. And that makes a point, I'm sure.
So I tried this with the 05, I think, which is broader compared to the 005.
Right.
I've never really tried stippling. I know that stippling is probably done better with technical drafting pens that maybe Rotring makes. But I have seen a lot of artists also use the Pigma Microns for stippling. So I wanted to give it a try. And I enjoyed the 005. The stippling was more stippling-like.
So stippling is where you just literally hammer the page with it.
Yes, you try to get the gradation, by making denser dots or circles. Okay. And the 005, actually, I pressed it a little too hard in the beginning, and I thought I had lost, the tip, the nib.
Because this had happened to Samir in our Unipen episode as well. The marker's tip kind of can get pushed back in.
Yeah.
But then I realized that, the Sakura Pigma is famous for a reason. I managed to finish the whole piece with that nib that I thought I damaged, but I maybe didn't really damage it.
I think consistency and reliability are the hallmarks of both Fineliners, but also these particular Fineliners.
Yeah. I'm guessing that's the main reason they are so ubiquitous.
Yeah, especially in production or time-oriented things like comic book making or even sketching at conventions. You will often see people using microns because they're just that reliable. They're light fast, like we said. They go down easily. They dry. You can do stippling with them. You can do marks with them.
Every second Instagram reel is actually Zentangles or doodle art. Everything with the Pigma Microns.
So now I'm interested in how you got these to go over a color. First of all, tell us what the color treatment you used.
So I used our favorite Ecoline inks. Dipped it in a brush, regular brush. Wrote this out first and then tried stippling over the color.
Okay. And so it's come down pretty well, but it also kind of blended. And I think that is something that I noticed maybe this particular set, or maybe just compared to the Unipens that we use. The ink here, I think, is a little grayer. And this is not a bad thing necessarily, but it's a little more translucent than the very almost too inky black of the Unipens that I love, because I've mostly used Unipens. And I enjoy the really deep black that you get out of that. It's not, you can't put down a huge swathe of it, but this one, I think it would be interesting to lean into that grayness. I did not lean into that grayness, and I'll show you my test drive here. When we did the Unipens, I had done some kind of animal creature sort of art, and I thought, okay, let me do the same kind of thing and see what it's like. In the Unipens case, I feathered all my lines, which meant that, and if there's I'll put up a screen maybe of the old one there, in that I would almost not use the full pressure of the pen. Never. So you get this very wavy, and sometimes it breaks and that kind of line. In this case, I did not do that. I used this almost like a digital tool where I'd always put down even pressure.
So they're complete lines.
Complete lines. Anywhere I was lifting off deliberately rather than letting the texture of the page sort of break it up. And this was a very different way of doing it. It feels different, but it comes out well. It's not. I'm not unhappy with any of this, and I'm kind of glad how even it went down, because all the way from there to there, you kind of reach this kind of zen of trying. And I don't think I had an overlap line ever, because sometimes you can, but the control for some reason that you get out of a fine liner, you just kind of know where the line is going and it goes there. You never have to think again, or once you're sort of set into the flow of things, it's very good and very easy to use. And that's why I think people use it for art, even though it's a thing that was almost made for or derived from technical things.
I think the dependability of this medium compared to any sort of other pen you would use, whether it's regular markers or this is just so much more dependable. The effect, the result that you get, the line that you get is pretty much even throughout. And I have to say the Pigmas are just, it feels like the nibs are very sturdy.
Very much so. You can, like I said, I was fine putting down more pressure on these. Sometimes I do feel that about the Unipens, that I might be putting too much pressure and then it'll just like pop in like it had.
Yeah, and I've faced that before. Minjal saw some of it happening here, but obviously it lasted kind of well beyond.
Self-salvaged itself.
Yeah, it lasted well beyond the, when you had sort of impacted it in a little.
Yes.
So that definitely makes this, just physically as well, I think these pens are really sturdy. They have that metal clip. They feel more like a serious tool.
Yeah,
I guess.
There's that. It's a 5% difference. It's not like I'm saying the Unipens are bad, because I love the Unipens. But
yeah,
we've tried a few now. We've tried the Unipin. We've tried the Snowman. We've tried the Pigmas now. I would not say no to any of them, but I think the Pigmas and the Unis are almost, neck and neck.
Yeah.
I'd say on the darkness of the ink, I like the Unis. On the kind of the way I could get a nice even line, I like the Pigmas. And it's Sakura. We've done a bunch of Sakura tools before. We only really disliked one of them, I think, which was the Perma Pigs.
Yeah, which I'm sure they're improving as we speak.
Yeah. And that's the thing about Sakura. They just know how to do their great value for money. And how much was this, Minjal? This set of like 6 or 8 of them? Do we know? Because I know that Unipens come in sets.
We'll put it on screen. I don't think we remember how much it was.
Anyway, it's not cheap, but it's also probably not like a very expensive thing. Certainly, it's worth getting a set.
And also, we've had these for some time. The inks haven't dried out in any.
Yeah, this set is at least 2 or 3 years old.
Yeah. Exactly.
Okay. Okay, so but then that's something we covered in the previous episode as well. When you put money into these sort of things, you expect them to work out well, and these markers last for years. The Unis last for years. Let's not. It's really get them. There's nothing bad here, and I don't think Samir, you had much of a bad experience with it either.
No, I went for.
Put the colorful one on top here.
I went for illustration again, and I went for a very sort of comic style illustration.
Ligne Claire, I think, is the French term for it, the clear line or the clean line.
Yeah, and what I found is, I tried to do something that really lent into the different line weights, so that I could create that sense of depth and also create something that a lot of artists use these not necessarily for the finished piece, but for the drawing that would then be colored. So I tried to do something that I would imagine can be colored digitally. And I really enjoyed using these. They were great. I do think that the variety in size is a little redundant at times.
Yes.
I found myself mostly sticking to 3 sizes.
Yes.
I think you need the 05 is a must. That's like the perfect middle size.
Yeah.
You need one that's thinner, so that could be the 003 or the 005. I didn't find myself needing one over the other. Either would do. And I think having like a 08 as a thicker version.
Yeah, I didn't end up using the PN, which is the sign pen, but then I don't look for the sign pen style of things when I'm looking for a fineliner. I'd rather use a Fude pen, Fude Nosuke pen, which we have covered, because that has more of a sort of fluidity and a more variety in its line. But this one is a decent sign pen from what I've tried now. Minjal, you tried it?
I tried some of the stippling I've done here.
The more black parts.
The more darker parts are with the sign pen. And like you said, I actually also enjoyed the Fude pen.
The Tombow?
The Tombow,
yes.
Yeah.
Well, other people make Fude pens as well, I'm sure, in Japan. But maybe Sakura makes one.
Yeah, this is actually also fairly redundant. I don't know what this is doing in the set.
So the thing is the redundancy part. We are talking about it very specifically as artists and calligraphers and designers. Like we covered before, if you are a technical artist who uses these and need to
have a proper variety of line, then this makes sense, because as artists, what you do is, if you had, like I was saying, as an artist, I would just use 3 sizes.
Yeah.
But if I wanted a size between the 05 and the 08, I'd either go lighter on the 08.
Because we need to talk about the way these are made, like technical pens. You have a metal tip that goes almost all the way to the actual marker. The marker is quite literally a tip. So what it's made for, technically, is you put a ruler down and then you just do a pen stroke like that.
Yeah.
Which will always give you an even line. Whereas as artists,
so as I said, as an artist, I would go lighter on a 08 to get something between a 05 and a 08. I would go heavier on a 05 if I wanted something in between. But as a technical, as an engineer or someone doing technical drawings, you need to have that straight line where you can just apply an even pressure and get a dependable line. In which case, then yes, having 6 sizes or 8 sizes or whatever makes complete sense.
Yeah. But as an artist, if you get these loose, and we know you get some of the Unipens and all loose, you just pick, I'd say, skip steps. Get a 2, a 4, a 6 or whatever, or get a 3, a 5 and a 0, 0 thing. And then get a Fude, because you want that sometimes.
Yeah. I mean, it's just a good, and if you're doing something like stippling, then obviously the Fude or the sign pen is just much hardier, because you can tap it without the nib kind of going in.
Yeah. And the Fude then has the face of the nib, which is as in the sides of it rather than just the point. Here you don't have much of side. So yeah, different horses for courses, as they used to say. And these are good horses. It's a whole stable of them that is good.
And it's quite interesting that we've talked about Sakura before. They're the ones who invented the oil pastel and also invented the gel pen. They are known for a lot of their really colorful, I mean, everything that they make involves color a lot. And the good thing is that they also make these in colors.
Which we should test out.
But it's also interesting that the thing that maybe Sakura is the most popular for amongst artists is actually not colored.
Yeah. Sakura blossoms themselves, which the company uses in their logo, are quite subtle in their color, but it's nice that they're very colorful implements are their hallmark.
So Sakura actually invented the Pigma ink, right?
Yeah.
So this was actually what led to. So they were looking for like drafting technical pens, and then they came up with the Pigma ink, which is like a pigment-based ink.
Yeah. So I think traditionally, and we've covered the history of felt pens a little before, but felt pens were dye-based.
Right.
The ink that went into felt pens, which means that it kind of soaks into paper.
Right.
I think when they decided to make sort of a felt-based technical pen, they wanted it to be archival, which dye-based inks are just not. After exposure to UV light for a while, it kind of fades away. So they wanted something that was archival, which kind of sat on the surface of the paper rather than seeped in, so that you would get these very clean technical lines. And also something that was waterproof, so that you could, like you're doing an architectural drawing, you make the lines and then you do a watercolor wash on it. You can do that with these pens. You can't with most felt tip pens. So, yeah, I guess they developed this ink which is pigment based. And of course, they had to make pigment being a particulate matter. They needed to invent a way to make pigment particles that were on the sub-micron level, so that it would flow through these really tiny cylindrical tips. So yeah, it was quite a technological achievement to get here. And then I guess now everyone's kind of gotten the same level of fineness into their inks, and that's why Fineliners are a thing.
And hence Pigma Micron.
Yeah.
That you learn something every day on Stationery Test Drive, or at least every week when we put out an episode. And you can learn more things about stationery like this, stories like this, on the Inky Memo website, as well as please subscribe to our Inky Memo newsletter over there. You can follow us at the links that are on screen right now. I'm Vishal.
This is Minjal.
I'm Samir. And if you've enjoyed this video, you really should see the video we have on the Unipen, which is our other favorite fineliner. And also check out Sakura's other great pen, which is the white jelly roll. You should like those. Vishal?
Live and let Pigma.